Big visits in Athens this past weekend. It was actually the type of weekend that UGA fans will look back on at the end of the cycle, and they can see it all coming together. And in this video, we're going to talk about the behind-the-scenes intel from UGA's first major visit weekend of the spring. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the QB board as well. So UGA fans, do me a favor, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. All right, let's bring on Jake Rowe from DawgsHQ. And the trenches were filled with 5 stars. UGA O-line visitors, and we'll start at the top here with David Sanders. Now, David Sanders out of Charlotte, North Carolina. We know that this is primarily a Clemson UGA battle. David Sanders, no stranger to campus, and this likely will not be his last visit either. What's being said after this visit for David Sanders to UGA?
It was a really good visit. I think that they got a lot of their questions answered, and he's been to Georgia a few times. Georgia's recruited him really hard. Clemson's absolutely a big threat here, if not maybe a little bit of an edge at this point in the process. Georgia's all over it. I mean, Georgia brought in a big class of 6 guys in the 2024 class. Yeah. So, that it's always tough to get big-time prospects after that, but Georgia's all over Sanders. They've been recruiting him for a while, and Clemson's making a move too. But I think this visit went really well. Georgia certainly didn't hurt itself, and I believe that it's going to come down to official visits and kind of, who can kind of give him the best feel for this whole thing.
Next up, we're going to hit on 5-star offensive tackle Josh Petty. Now, he's out of Roswell, Georgia, the number 4 ranked offensive tackle in America. And this one is another battle with Clemson because the Tigers, they're currently trending on the RPM, followed by Georgia Tech, then UGA. This was Petty's 3rd visit to Georgia and likely not his last either. How do you read this recruitment? Is it another UGA versus Clemson battle?
It seems that way. I would say I like the way Georgia's trending in this one, because if I take you back 5-6 months, I would have said, I didn't really see it happening. There was just something that seemed a little bit off there. But Georgia's message seems to be resonating with Petty in a way now that it wasn't, a few months ago. And I actually like Georgia's chances here right now. And I think this visit's a big part of it. And again, I hate to sound like a broken record here, but you're looking at a recruitment that's kind of similar to David Sanders in that, man, this kid can go anywhere he wants to go. The same kind of schools are involved. And, when it comes to it, these are 2 schools that do it in their own way, but have a really good track record with these official visits. And I think Georgia's going to be, a very big-time contender here all the way to the end for Petty.
Okay, now, next up on this list is Mason Short, and I like Georgia's chances here. I just wanted to get that in before Jake Rowe said it. He's 6'5.5", 300 pounds, and is currently trending to UGA on the recruiting prediction machine. Now, we know Georgia's been involved. Mason Short decommitted from Alabama in the wake of Nick Saban's retirement, and he's been back to Georgia several times now. So how much of a priority is he? Is UGA pushing for a commitment here?
It seems that way. I mean, it seems like Georgia's definitely on him very hard. Unlike the other guys, I don't really consider him as much of an offensive tackle, at least not a surefire offensive tackle. I consider him a little bit more of a guard. But I do think that's something Georgia's got to get worked out as well. I mean, they enter this class needing to add at tackle. They need to add at guard. And, I think Mason Short's a guy that even when he was committed to Alabama, they didn't really slow down. They continue to recruit him. He's an in-state guy. They like him a lot, and I think that this one has steadily kind of trended Georgia's way. Not like no big surge or anything like that, no big turn or crescendo in his recruitment. It's just one of those things that, like, ever since he decommitted from Alabama, and maybe even before that a little bit, was kind of the thing started sliding kind of in Georgia's favor, and it continues to do so.
All right, well, let's go from the O-line to the quarterback position. And you and I last week talked Matt Zollers versus Juju Lewis and how this commitment timeline could work out. But over the weekend, we saw another 4-star quarterback on campus, and that was Ryan Montgomery from Findlay, Ohio. He visited on Saturday. Now, this has mainly been a South Carolina Florida Gator battle. Is UGA going to be a player in this recruitment moving forward?
Man, this is such a loaded question because it depends on so many different things. I mean, it's pretty apparent that Juju Lewis and Matt Zollers are Georgia's kind of number 1 targets. 1A, 1B, flip-flop them, it doesn't matter. They are the guys that Georgia wants to get there. And I've been open about this. Rusty Mansell, my man over at DawgsHQ, has been open about this. We think Georgia's going to get one of those guys. It certainly seems that way. But Georgia likes Ryan Montgomery a lot, and they have continued to recruit him. They've continued to work on him and get him to campus and keep him kind of in the fold.
Mm-hmm.
I think if Georgia were to somehow slip past those two, with the timeline matching up, I think it would make a push for Ryan Montgomery, who I like a lot. I think he's a very good player. But right now, I would say that Juju Lewis and Matt Zollers are definitely a cut above on Georgia's board.
Yeah, it's kind of the way I see it right now, too. I think Ryan Montgomery, he's a name that UGA fans should know, but kind of put him aside when you got Juju Lewis and Matt Zollers. Now, major development over the weekend. Chad Simmons reported that Juju Lewis has set an official visit to Georgia for May 31st. Now, Matt Zollers has not set his official visits at all, let alone Georgia yet, and neither of them has set a commitment date. But what does this Juju Lewis OV to UGA on May 31st mean to you in his recruitment?
I think it's interesting that I believe that's the first official visit weekend, if I'm not mistaken. If it's not, it's the second. It's one of those first two that I think that's really interesting that Georgia's getting him on campus as quickly as possible. And listen, they've got him on campus a lot. I mean, they have gotten Juju Lewis on campus over and over and over again. I like where things trend for Georgia for Juju Lewis. It's just a matter of, how easy is the breakup going to be. And with USC, but listen, man, Lincoln Riley does such a fantastic job with quarterbacks. You can talk all you want about defense at USC and Oklahoma and why they know college football playoff wins and all that stuff. I mean, if you're a quarterback, you just can't ignore the opportunity, at least, to play for Lincoln Riley. So I get that. It's also going to come down to timeline, Josh. And I think the Georgia coaching staff, if you were to catch them in a moment of candor, I think they're probably pumping their fist a little bit and maybe rooting for Matt Zollers to keep on going in these basketball playoffs. I think they have a chance to play for the state championship game or could have a chance to play for a state championship game. As long as they keep pushing, it kind of pushes Matt Zollers' timeline back as far as visits. And slowly but surely, that timeline is starting to mesh better with Juju Lewis's timeline. And that makes things a little easier on Georgia if they're recruiting one of those and they just want to get one of them, because then they don't really have to kind of have their hand forced and figure out things a little sooner. So all of those things are definitely ones to watch there. And I think Georgia's put itself in a good spot with both guys. It's just a matter of, okay, when are you going to get them on campus for official visits? When are they going to try to make decisions? Because it now seems like there's a good chance that Matt Zoller's only opportunity to really visit and figure things out might be official visits. And if that's the case, that's good for Georgia, because now Georgia can kind of get their timelines to be a little bit more parallel and figure it out that way.
Yeah, and I'm looking at this Julian Lewis official visit date for May 31, and it kind of reminds me of Dylan Raiola's recruitment, because it was Raiola was taking those visits in the spring and then wanted to make that decision right before the June recruiting season started. June's a very important recruiting season. That's when a majority of the official visits take place. And then we see a ton of decisions made in early July and into August. So do you think that Julian Lewis could be setting up for something similar, for a decision to come right before the summer recruiting season?
While it looks that way, while you can probably I don't necessarily see that being the case. I think that Dylan Raiola kind of had, and ultimately may have played a role in his decision to decommit. He maybe rushed things a little bit and kind of, wanted to get himself in place and become, a 11th staffer for Georgia a little bit.
Yeah.
I think Julian, Lewis is a guy that's been more deliberate, and I don't think he's going to be in a massive hurry. And listen, I don't think Georgia's going to be in a massive hurry to lock one of these guys down. And I don't know that I wouldn't say they learned a lesson last cycle or anything like that with Raiola, but ultimately I think you just want to get it right. And talking about a guy that's already committed somewhere, if he were to go to Georgia, speaking of Juju Lewis, he would have to flip. So I think it's more of a situation with Juju where he's really focused on making sure that he makes the right decision. Honestly, I would be pretty shocked if he took that May 31st visit and committed right away.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we're talking about a decommitment here, so it's. I think he's going to probably try to play out the string a little bit more and maybe come to a final decision once he does decide.
All right. And for those scoring at home, I did release my Juju Lewis power rankings about 3 weeks ago, and I had the Dogs on top of the Trojans. I still feel that way as it stands right now. Before I let you go, Jake, is every weekend going to be a big visit weekend this spring in Athens? Because it just seems like, I was on DawgsHQ all weekend. There was an insane amount of talent. We only covered a fraction of it. So you guys should go to DawgsHQ, catch up on all the recruiting intel. But is every weekend going to kind of be like this?
Well, it's kind of tough when you get them all on campus like they did this weekend to kind of keep them coming like that, right? I mean, there's only so many guys, so many top 20, so many top 30, 40 guys. Georgia had at least 4 of the top 20 players in the country on campus in 3 days, in a span of 3 days. So I don't think they're all going to be quite as big as it was this past weekend, but I do think they're all going to be pretty significant for the most part. I mean, they've got the coaches clinic this weekend, so that may make it a little tougher. But going forward, G-Day, all those things, I do think that they're gonna max out the weekends as best they can, and they've got another good looking visitor list for during the week this week.
Yeah. Hey, Georgia fans have been wanting this type of recruiting for a long time. It's here. You guys should cherish it. Jake Rowe from DawgsHQ, thanks for stopping by the Inside Scoop today.
You got it, man.
Thank you for watching this video. And if you enjoyed that, go check out the hundreds of videos that we have on this channel. And also, do me a favor, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel.